Hello. In this video we're going to look at how you should complete the main fields of an agreement request form before submitting it to sector operations. More detailed information about the different parts of the agreement request form can be found in the Working with Agreements guide on the contracting support page of the Nationwide Service Framework Library website. Here you can also find the current agreement request form together with the PERORG form, which you should use to give us details about new providers or changes to existing ones. We're going to start off by looking at the first page of the agreement request form, which includes the basic details of the agreement. Agreement request form relates to. Your selection here tells us whether you're requesting a brand new agreement or varying an existing agreement. Does this replace a previous request form? Tick yes here if you have previously submitted this request and information such as the start date or funding amount has now changed. Variation relates to. This field is only required for variations. The selection you make here determines the wording that appears in the variation document, telling the provider what's changing. You can make as many selections as necessary. Legal entity name. Enter the name as it appears in the company's or charity's register. Trading as name. Complete this field if the provider trades under a different name from the legal entity name, such as a residential facility. The trading as name will appear throughout the document after the legal entity name. Postal address. We derive this from CMS. If you need to change the provider's address, you will need to complete a PERORG form. Physical address. If you are requesting a Ministry of Health outcome agreement, the physical address of the provider is required, as this will appear on the agreement document. Provider contact name. This is the main contact for the provider. This name will appear on the front page of the agreement document. Provider email address. We request this for our records in case we need to contact your provider. Performance reporting contact name. This is the provider contact that we deal with for performance reporting matters, if your agreement requires the provider to report through sector operations. Performance reporting email address. This is usually the performance reporting contact's email address, but sometimes it's a generic reporting email address. Provider number. All request forms require a provider number. This unique identifier can be sourced from CMS or the HIN. If the agreement is with a new provider, then you will need to submit a PERORG form and bank account verification. New Zealand business number. This can be found on the New Zealand Business Number website. DHB. This identifies the DHB that is submitting the request form. It's not required for Ministry of Health agreement requests. Agreement manager name. This is the person with overall responsibility for the agreement, usually a senior manager. Agreement deputy name. This is the person with day-to-day responsibility for the agreement. Their name will appear on the front of the agreement. Agreement finance manager name. For CMS paid services, this is the person with final approval of invoices before payment. Agreement service area or business unit. This is selected from a predetermined list. If you're at the Ministry of Health, then it's your business unit. For DHBs, it's the service area, such as health of older people or mental health services. Agreement name. This is the name of the agreement. It appears on the front page of the document. Original agreement number. If you are requesting a variation to an existing agreement, please enter the original agreement number in this field. Agreement or variation start date. This is the date from which you want the agreement or variation to take effect. For variations, there must not be a gap between the end of the previous version and the start of the variation. Agreement or variation end date. This is the end date of the agreement or variation, and must of course be later than the start date. Increased or decreased dollars. For new agreements, this is the total of all services within the agreement. For variations, it's just the increase or decrease in dollars for the variation, not the new overall total. Entering the total of CCPS paid services is optional. Agreement type. Your entry here will determine the template used for your agreement documentation. If you're using a funder-created document, please select Other. This field need only be used for new agreements or if you are requesting a variation to a service schedule. Ethnic classification. Enter General, Māori or Pacific Island. If nothing is entered here, we will use General. We're now going to move on to the Service Details page of the Agreement Request form. A separate Service Details page is required for each different service in the agreement. Service Detail page relates to. Your selection here tells us whether you're requesting a variation to an existing service or a brand new service. Purchase Unit Code. The Purchase Unit, or PU code, is used to identify the service being purchased. A current list of PU codes can be found in the Purchase Unit Data Dictionary on the Nationwide Service Framework Library website. Purchase Unit Description. This is your description of the service being purchased and will appear in the agreement document. It can help to distinguish between services in the agreement which have the same PU code. It can also be more specific to the service being purchased than the generic description from the Purchase Unit Data Dictionary. If nothing is entered here, the generic description from the Data Dictionary will be used. Description of change occurring. This optional field is used for variations only and can give us useful information about the reason for the variation, in addition to what you've selected on the Agreement Details page. Ethnic classification. This is specific to the service you're requesting, and not necessarily the same as your selection for the overall agreement. GST percentage. Use this field to indicate the GST rate for the service you are requesting. Payment system. Enter CMS, CCPS or Proclaim depending on the service being purchased. Purchase method. The purchase method you choose dictates the way the funding is to be disbursed to your provider over the term of the service. To decide which purchase method best suits the service you are purchasing, please see the section on purchase methods in the Working with Agreements guide. Price per unit. A unit price should only be used if the purchase method is PV block, PV capped or PV uncapped. Volume. A volume should only be used when the purchase method is PV block or PV capped. Add a unit of measure, for example FTE or bed day, if you want this to be shown in the agreement document. Increased or decreased service dollars. If you're requesting a new agreement or adding a new service, this is where you enter the total dollars for the service. For variations, enter the net increase or decrease only, not the new overall service total. Payment frequency. The payment frequency determines how often your provider will be paid. In most cases, this will be monthly for CMS paid services. Payment date. If payments are evenly distributed, enter the date of the first payment. If regular payments aren't appropriate for the service, complete the Payment Schedule section of the Service Details page. Service start date. For new services, enter the start date of the service. If you're varying an existing service, enter the date from which the service is being varied. Service end date. For new services, this is the last date the service is provided. If you're varying an existing service, enter the date that the variation to the service ends. GL code. The General Ledger, or GL code, is only required for CMS paid services. It can be obtained from your finance manager. Hopefully this video will help you complete the main fields of the agreement request form. If you need further help, please refer to the Working with Agreements guide or contact your designated purchasing officer at Sector Operations.